Okay, so here's the practice test beginning at number 11, which is chapter 8. So this is the Keynesian Model, part 2, if you will. And I'll just go through these quickly. This front side here you can certainly do on your own, but the theory that supply creates its own demand is a cornerstone of, and that would be C, classical economist. And according to classical economists, which of the following would make prolonged unemployment impossible? And that would be A, which is flexible prices, wages, and interest rates, which we find that those items, are very sticky, which means they don't move very much unless it's over time. So that's one reason the economy would take a while to correct itself. All right, 13, the sum of consumption investment, which is, consumption, or I should say consumption, investment, and government purchases and net exports is called B, okay, aggregate expenditures. In this chapter, we're mainly working with consumption and investment there. So the C and the I is mainly what we're working with in this chapter. Let's see here. Let me turn this a little bit. Here we go. C, or for 14, consider the Keynesian consumption function. If disposable income is less than the break-even level of income, then households will be C, this saving. 15, the movement along the consumption function is caused by a change in B, real disposable income. And 16, if the interest rate the households pay on credit card purchases jump from 15 to 20%, then B, the consumption function will shift downward. Okay. And we covered that kind of briefly there in the textbook. But again, if the interest rate that a household pay on credit purchases jumps, I mean it's going to go high. So then the consumption function is going to shift downward. Just means purchasing power was lost there. Okay, number 17, before we get into the ones you have to calculate a little bit, which of the following would cause a rightward shift in the investment demand curve? And 17, I didn't answer that one. That one would be, which of the following would cause a rightward shift in the investment demand curve? Okay. And it would be an increase in the, it's going to cause a rightward shift, and it would be probably, it's going to be C. Okay. It's going to be an increase in the rate of capacity utilization there. So 17 should be C. And then, let's go to the graph here. Hopefully I can do a fair job with this here. If I were in class, we could draw this on the board and explain it a little bit better. But first of all, look at the graph here. I want to point out a couple of things. Here, we're saying that at break even here, or I should say that's not break even, my bad. At any rate, at least $1.5 trillion are going to be spent, no matter what the income or what the consumption is, as far as the possibilities. Remember, here's that 45-degree line. Okay, we don't necessarily care that much about it, because what we're saying is the beginning of spending, if you will, it's going to start at least $1.5 trillion. Okay. Now follow these lines up just for a minute here. You know where the 45-degree line is. You don't do anything with that. What we've been dealing with though is consumption. Okay. This chapter deals a lot with consumption. So pay attention to where C goes. And then we also added on I. Okay. So this consumption line, okay, we say that is pretty stable. So for this example, I is pretty well stable as well. And it's going to be the difference between C and AE, which is aggregate expenses, which that's all the expenses in the economy, which in this case, and for this chapter here, we're talking about consumption and investment. So consumption and investment, okay, equals aggregate expenses for this chapter. And it's going to be this line up here. And so you can see that is even all the way up. There's, it's the same amount. And if you, I'll go ahead and give you this difference here, but it's $1 trillion. So basically investment spending is $1 trillion all the way up this consumption function line. Okay. So I think I've described, this here pretty well. So now let's go down to the first question here. And it says, what is the household's marginal propensity to consume? So this is that MPC we're talking about. It is the change in real disposable income divided by the change in real consumption. Remember, we're talking about a change here. Okay. So real disposable income, okay, is, it's going to be divided into consumption, which is, the vertical. So what you're going to have is the run, which is the bottom here, which is disposable income. That's our run. Let's say, get it over here. And so it's going to be the change in that. The change in run gets divided in the change in the rise, which this is our rise here. Okay. Very simple. So we're basically dividing this into this. All right. The rise goes over the run. Okay. And you could put, here by the rise, this is real consumption. Okay. Real consumption and investment expenditures in this case. And then run is disposable income. So, what we want to deal with here though is it says, what is the household's marginal propensity to consume? Again, it is the change in real disposable income divided into change in real consumption. So real consumption is going to be for households is on the consumption line. Okay. That's the line we care about. So, what I like to do is I like to find when I'm asked a question like this, when I'm explaining this, I like to find an even place where this here line crosses. And lucky for us, it happened to be the 2 mark. So remember, all spending starts here. All consumption starts here. You don't start down here at 0. It starts right here because we could have some just savings in here. So it all starts right here. So if I start here and so at 0 real disposable income, we're spending $1.5 trillion. Okay. Where's that come from? I don't have that kind of savings. All right. Anyway, I digress. So if I go over here to the 2, which gives me a nice spot here on the consumption line. So that I take that over there to 2. All right. And if I come back over, so it starts here at 2. So disposable income goes up by 2 trillion. It was 0. It goes up by 2 trillion. So here's where my consumption line is. So this is where I put it here. Remember, it's the change. So I put 2 and it's going to be minus 0 because we were at 0. We had no disposable income at all. So it's 2 minus 0. And then where did that line fall at? Okay. Right here on the consumption line, it fell. That's right. At the 3. Okay. It fell right at the 3. So this 2 here, real disposable income went up by 2. And, my, real consumption went up to 3. It went up to 3. This went over 2. It landed at the 3 here. So it's going to be 3 minus the 1.5 because we were already spending 1.5. All right. So it's 3 minus the 1.5 here, which we got our 3 here. We're across the line. 2 trillion in real disposable income. So I'm going to take the 3 minus the 1.5. All right. Right there. And then that gives me 1.5 divided by 2, which that makes my, marginal propensity to consume 0.75. So it's 70, for every dollar I'm spending after this 1.5 trillion, for every dollar, 75 cents is going to consumption. So if I'd have went over here, let's go over here to 4. It would be 4 minus 0. Let's see. Let's see. Not 4. Well, the only next even one here is up here at 6, and that's our next question. So let's go to that. So now it says, what is my level of break-even income? All right. So you can see here the answer is 6 trillion. Well, let's go, and it's C. So let's go back up here. So what happens is, if I go over here to 6 trillion, and 6 trillion here, all right, and there's break even. So it's right where those are going to intersect, where the two sixes intersect. Now remember, I told you, this is not 6 trillion additional dollars. It would be 6 minus 1.5. Okay. And if I take that 6 minus 1.5, that's 4.5. And if I divide that into 6, that should give me my 0.75. So 6 divided by 4.5. Let's see here. No, that's not the right answer. It should be 4.5. Or I'm sorry, it should be 4.5 here and 6 over here. So it should be 4.5 divided by 6. That's right. So it should be the 4.5. Okay, right here. So it'd be 6 minus 1.5. That's 4.5. And then you would divide that by 6, because that is true spending, the whole thing. That was real disposable income of $6 trillion that went in, all right, to get this break even. So that's where the 6 and the 6 in real disposable income and the 6 in real consumption meet is right there. And it's still, like I said, the MPC is 0.75. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense there. So then the other part is, and this is very key here. So I'm kind of pointing these out. What level of real disposable income makes aggregate income and aggregate spending by households and firms? So now we're adding the firms in, which again, that's if you remember our circular flow. Businesses invest and consumers spend. So let's it says it's 10 trillion. So now we're wanting to make sure we capture both consumption, okay, which is consumers, and then we add in the investment, which gives us our aggregate expenditures, the AE. So again, even though this is the same all the way up, the 1 trillion, here's where it equals each other, and that's where the break even is for aggregate expenditures. This includes consumption plus the investment here. So this line up here gives me, break even at $10 trillion. Okay. So there you have that. Again, maybe I'll write the break even one down again for you here. Let me see if I can do that as well as hold my camera. So you have the, again, change in rise divided by the change in the run. Okay. And like I said, for break even here, this is truly $6 trillion that went into the economy. So it's going to be 6 minus 0. But then the additional spending only comes from, it starts at the 1.5. So, 1.5 up to 6, where this intersects. Now, again, this here, we're talking about where this intersects. That's break even. No savings, and no dissavings is going on here. So 6 minus the 1.5. 6 minus 1.5 equals 4.5. And that's going to be 6. That should give me 0.75. So again, that should hold true all along here. So if you want to be very technical about it, take each one of these and figure out which point you want to select, and it will be 0.75 the whole way if you divide that correctly. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful. As far as these two videos, sorry that went a little longer than I thought, but this chapter here, if any, needs a little explanation, and I just wanted to show you exactly how that was done. Thank you.